You were at rock bottom, destroyed, broken inside, and then she appeared, a butterfly, simple, delicate, almost transparent. It landed on your shoulder as if it knew exactly where your soul hurt the most. You couldn't even believe it. In a moment, when everything seemed lost, on a day when the whole world seemed to conspire against you, such a fragile being decided to touch you, not for seconds, for whole minutes, as if it had something important to say, but didn't know how. Zeno of Citium, the founder of Stoicism, dedicated decades to studying what he called LOGOS, the rational intelligence that governs the universe, and he believed that this intelligence does not remain silent when we are suffering. The LOGOS, he taught, manifests itself through subtle signs to those who are willing to perceive, and the moments of greatest pain are when this communication becomes more intense and evident. Because there is something about suffering that makes us more receptive to what Zeno called the universal language, the way the cosmos communicates with us through seemingly casual events, but charged with meaning. You weren't looking for signs. You weren't expecting messages. You weren't in a mental state to interpret symbolism or philosophize about coincidences. You were just suffering. But it was exactly in this state of total vulnerability that the butterfly found you, as if it knew that your soul was with its defenses down, with its mental filters turned off, ready to receive what the universe wanted to communicate. Zeno observed that the ancient Stoics had a special sensitivity to these moments of painful synchronicity, when nature responds to our suffering with gestures so delicate that they can only be perceived by souls temporarily stripped of their usual resistances. Pain makes us porous to the sacred. It opens us to perceptions that we normally block with our skepticism, our haste, our need to control everything around us. And perhaps that is exactly what happened at that moment. Your pain made you porous. It opened you to a form of communication that you would normally ignore or rationalize. The butterfly was not just a lost insect that landed on you by chance. It was the LOGOS, the universal intelligence, trying to touch you in the only way it could, through wings so light that they don't hurt, but so present that they cannot be ignored. Zeno knew that accepting this interpretation requires a radical change in the way we see our relationship with the world. It requires accepting that we are not alone, even in our darkest moments. That there is a greater intelligence operating constantly, sending us exactly what we need at the exact moment we need it most, even when we don't know we need it. The universe does not abandon us to our pain. It sends us silent messengers to remind us that we are part of something bigger, that our pain is also part of an order that transcends our limited understanding. And the butterfly that landed on your shoulder was one of those messengers. You feel resistance when you think about the possibility that the butterfly was not just a coincidence, and this resistance reveals something important about how you relate to the idea of not being completely alone in the universe. Because accepting that the butterfly was sent by the LOGOS means accepting that you are more important to the cosmos than you believe, that your pain is significant enough to deserve universal attention, that there is a greater intelligence that cares about your well-being, and that scares you more than it should. Zeno faced this same resistance when he began to develop his theory about cosmic providence. He realized that we humans have a strange tendency to prefer to feel abandoned by the universe than cared for by it. It is easier to believe that we are alone in our pain than to accept that we are part of a web of care that operates through forms that our rational mind cannot fully understand. Because accepting cosmic care means accepting that you matter, that your existence has meaning, that your moments of suffering are not isolated and meaningless events, but part of a human experience that the universe itself accompanies and responds to. And if you have spent years believing that you don't matter, that you don't deserve special attention, that you must carry your pains alone, then the appearance of a butterfly in your most difficult moment becomes almost unbearable to process. Zeno knew that this is one of the deepest wounds of the human condition, the belief that we are too insignificant to deserve signs, too small to deserve messages, too irrelevant for the cosmos to communicate with us. We have become accustomed to living as spiritual orphans, and when the universe offers us signs that we are not abandoned, our first reaction is distrust, not of the sign, but of our own dignity to receive it. But the butterfly didn't care about your low self-esteem. It didn't wait for you to feel worthy of cosmic attention. It didn't wait for you to develop enough faith to interpret its presence as meaningful. It simply came in your moment of greatest vulnerability, when you were most convinced that you were alone, when your pain seemed to be evidence that the universe didn't care about you, and it landed, as if to say, without words, you are wrong about being alone. You are wrong about not mattering. You are wrong about your pain being too insignificant to deserve a response. Zeno called this cosmic correction, moments when the universe intervenes directly to correct our distorted perceptions about our place in the greater order of things. The Logos does not argue with us about our dignity. It simply acts as if we were worthy, and through this action, invites us to reconsider our beliefs about ourselves. But accepting this correction means facing an even more uncomfortable truth, that you may have spent years denying yourself the care that has always been available, that you may have ignored hundreds of small signs, small synchronicities, small moments in which the universe tried to communicate with you, because you were convinced that you did not deserve cosmic attention. That you may have interpreted as coincidences things that were, in fact, attempts by the Logos to establish contact with a soul that has become accustomed to living in spiritual isolation. Zeno understood that recognizing this is both liberating and painful. Liberating because it means that you have never been as alone as you believed. Painful because it means that you may have missed years of cosmic communication because of a self-esteem that did not allow you to see yourself as worthy of universal attention. The tragedy is not that the universe does not communicate with us. The tragedy is that we convince ourselves that we do not deserve to listen, and the butterfly that landed on your shoulder was a rupture in this tragedy, a moment in which your pain was so intense that your defenses against meaning temporarily broke down, a moment in which you were too vulnerable to rationalize, too skeptical to interpret, too hurt to resist, and in that total vulnerability, you were able to receive what the Logos has always tried to give you, the confirmation that you are not alone, that your pain matters enough to deserve signs, that your existence is significant enough for the cosmos itself to respond to your most difficult moments, that you are loved in a way that transcends your ability to understand or accept that love. Zeno knew that integrating this perception changes everything, because it means that you are not an isolated accident in an indifferent universe. You are part of a greater intelligence that manifests itself through 1,000 different forms, including delicate wings that land exactly when you most need to be touched. When we understand that we are part of the Logos, our pain ceases to be evidence of abandonment and becomes an opportunity for communion with the sacred. And perhaps that is exactly what the butterfly came to teach you, that even in your darkest moments, you are not alone. You are being cared for by an intelligence that operates through beauty, delicacy, perfect synchronicity, an intelligence that knows exactly when you need to be touched and sends messengers with wings to make that touch happen. Anna lost her mother on a Tuesday in autumn. At the wake, while everyone was talking in whispers, a blue butterfly entered the room and flew directly to the coffin, landing on the flowers for several minutes before leaving through the same window. Everyone saw it. No one could explain it. But I felt like my mother was telling me that everything was okay, Anna told me years later. Zeno would observe this and say, "The Logos does not obey the physical laws we know. It operates through synchronicities that defy our rational understanding, but nurture our deepest need for meaning." Roberta was in the hospital, awaiting test results that would determine if the cancer had returned. An orange butterfly appeared on the window of the room and remained there for 3 consecutive days, always at the same time, always in the same position. The doctors thought it was strange. The nurses started commenting. But for me, it was as if the universe was telling me to be patient, that everything would work out in due time. The tests came back negative. Elena went through the worst anxiety crisis of her life during the pandemic. On a day when she could barely get out of bed, she opened the window to breathe some fresh air, and a white butterfly entered the room, flew around the bed several times, and landed on her hand for almost 5 minutes. I was praying without knowing how to pray, and she appeared as if she were a physical answer to a question I didn't even know how to ask. Victor was driving to his father's funeral when a butterfly collided with the car's windshield and instead of dying got stuck between the glass and the wiper, accompanying the entire 2-hour trip to the cemetery. It was impossible to happen. Butterflies are fragile, the speed should have killed it, but it stayed there as if it were a silent escort for the last meeting with my father. Remember the feeling you had when the butterfly landed? It wasn't just surprise, it was something deeper, as if you were being visited by someone, not something, as if there was an intentionality behind that moment that transcended biological explanations. Zeno believed that these encounters reveal a fundamental truth about the nature of reality, that there is a layer of meaning operating constantly around us, but that we can only perceive when our rational mind is temporarily disarmed. Pain makes us receptive to forms of communication that we normally filter out. It opens us to perceive connections that our habitual logic would reject as impossible. Sarah was in the garden crying over the end of a 10-year relationship when she noticed that there were at least 6 different butterflies flying around her, something that had never happened before in that space. It was as if they had come to keep me company in my pain, as if they knew that I needed silent witnesses for what I was feeling. Miguel had the habit of visiting his wife's grave every Sunday. On a particularly difficult Sunday, the anniversary of her death, a yellow butterfly landed on the tombstone and remained there throughout the visit, only leaving when he said goodbye. It seemed like she was waiting for me, as if it were a sign that my wife knew that I came every week and wanted to show me that she was present in some way. Jade was going through severe depression when she began to notice that butterflies appeared whenever she thought about giving up on everything. In the window of the work, in the garden of the house, even on the balcony of the hospital where she was hospitalized. It was as if they were silent reminders that there was beauty in the world, even when I couldn't see it. Lucas was meditating on the decision to leave a job that was emotionally destroying him when a black and red butterfly entered the room, made several circles around him, and landed on his knee, remaining there until he made the decision to resign. It was as if she was giving me courage to do what I knew I needed to do, but didn't have the strength to do alone. Zeno understood that all these cases reveal a pattern. Butterflies appear not as biological coincidences, but as responses from the logos to our moments of greatest spiritual need. They are messengers of an intelligence that operates through synchrony, beauty, delicacy, offering exactly the kind of sign that a wounded soul can receive without resistance. And perhaps the most impressive thing is the temporal precision of these encounters. They don't happen at any moment, but specifically when we are most open to receiving meaning, when our pain has created an opening in our habitual defenses against the sacred. The Logos waits for the exact moment when we can receive its signs, and then it acts with a precision that should humble us before the intelligence that governs all things. The butterfly that came to you was not a coincidence. It was a response. Zeno developed a revolutionary theory about what he called sympathia, the idea that everything in the universe is interconnected through an invisible network of correspondences, and that this network responds to our emotional states in ways that transcend our rational understanding. The Logos is not a distant and indifferent force. It is a present intelligence that manifests itself through every element of nature, including the smallest and most delicate. And he believed that butterflies are particularly pure manifestations of this intelligence because they combine extreme fragility with transcendent beauty, qualities that make them capable of touching our soul without awakening our mental defenses. When a butterfly lands on you during a moment of pain, it is not just looking for nectar or resting its wings. It is participating in what Zeno called cosmic dialogue, a form of communication that takes place between your consciousness and the universal consciousness. There are moments when our soul emits signals so intense that they alter the energy field around us. And nature responds to these signals in the only way it knows, through presences that can touch us without hurting us. Pain has this specific quality of making our soul porous, receptive, open to forms of communication that we normally block. It is as if suffering creates a special frequency that attracts responses from the Logos. Zeno observed that it is not just any insect that appears in these moments. They are specifically butterflies, beings that have already gone through the most radical process of transformation that exists in nature. They are living symbols that destruction can generate beauty, that the end of one form can be the beginning of something higher. And when they land on you during moments of pain, they are offering this wisdom in a non-verbal way, that your current pain may be the cocoon of a transformation that you cannot yet imagine. Remember the exact moment when it landed, how time seemed to stop, as if you were living a moment outside of common reality, as if you were being enveloped by a presence that transcended the physical. Zeno called these moments silent epiphanies, experiences in which the Logos becomes temporarily perceptible through events that defy our rational understanding, but nurture our deepest need for connection with something greater. The universe does not communicate with us through words because words are limited. It communicates through experiences that directly touch our soul. And the experience of being visited by a butterfly during a moment of suffering is one of these direct communications. A way for the cosmos to say, without using language, you are not alone, your pain is seen, your transformation is possible. Zeno understood that accepting this interpretation requires a fundamental change in the way we see our relationship with nature. We are not external observers of a mechanical world, but conscious participants in a living intelligence that responds to our internal states. When we understand that we are part of the Logos, each encounter with nature becomes an opportunity for dialogue with the sacred. And butterflies are particularly eloquent in this dialogue because their very existence is a testament to the fact that radical transformation is possible. They literally dissolve and rebuild themselves, a process that mirrors what happens to us during periods of great suffering. They appear in our most difficult moments because they are natural teachers of metamorphosis. They come to remind us that we are going through a process of transformation, not destruction. And when one of them lands on you, it is offering its presence as confirmation that you have the ability to emerge from your pain transformed, just as it emerged from its chrysalis transformed. Zeno knew that this is not an interpretation that can be proven scientifically, but he also knew that there are forms of truth that transcend scientific proof, truths that are confirmed by direct experience, by emotional resonance, by the way they transform our relationship with ourselves and with the world. The truth of the Logos does not need to be proven. It needs to be lived, and when it is lived, it transforms everything. The butterfly that came to you during your moment of pain did not bring explanations. It brought presence. And in that presence, you experienced something that your rational mind cannot fully process, but that your soul recognized immediately. The confirmation that you are part of something much bigger, much more meaningful, much more caring than you ever imagined. And that confirmation in itself is already the beginning of your own metamorphosis. Zeno spent his last years observing how small natural events, the flight of a bird, the movement of the clouds, the unexpected appearance of butterflies, seemed to respond to the emotional states of the people around him. And he came to a conclusion that would forever change his understanding about our connection with the cosmos. We are not isolated accidents in an indifferent universe. We are conscious expressions of a greater intelligence that communicates with us constantly, through forms that our rational mind cannot process, but that our soul recognizes instantly. And the butterfly that landed on you during your moment of greatest pain was one of those communications. It wasn't a coincidence, it was a response to a soul that was emitting signals of suffering so intense that they altered the energy field around it. Response to a need for touch that you didn't even know you had. Response to a prayer that you didn't know how to make with words. The Logos hears what we cannot verbalize, and it responds in the most appropriate way for each soul, through presences that can reach us without awakening our resistance. And for a wounded soul like yours at that moment, nothing could be more appropriate than delicate wings, something fragile enough not to scare you, but present enough not to be ignored. Something that would bring beauty to a moment in which you had lost the ability to see beauty. Something that would bring delicacy to a moment in which everything seemed brutal and meaningless. Something that would bring the silent confirmation that transformation is possible. Through a being that literally went through the most radical death and rebirth that exists in nature. Zeno knew that accepting this interpretation changes everything about the way we live our pain. Because it means that our most difficult moments are not evidence of cosmic abandonment, but opportunities for deeper communion with the sacred. When we suffer, we are not being punished by the universe. We are being invited to a more intense form of connection with it. And the butterfly that came to you was part of that invitation, a messenger sent to remind you that you are not alone, not even in the darkest parts of your experience, that your pain matters enough to deserve signs, that your soul is precious enough to receive visits, that your transformation is important enough for the cosmos itself to manifest through wings to accompany you in the process. Don't question if it was real or imagination. Question how this experience can transform you. Because in the end, it doesn't matter if you can scientifically prove that the butterfly was sent by the Logos. It matters how this experience made you feel, how it changed your perception about your place in the universe, how it altered your relationship with the possibility of not being completely alone. Zeno understood that there are truths that do not need external proof because they are confirmed internally, through the way they resonate with our deepest need for meaning, connection, transcendence. The truth of the Logos is confirmed not by reason, but by the transformation it provokes in those who experience it. And if the visit of the butterfly brought you some measure of peace, some relief from loneliness, some hope that there are benevolent forces operating in your life, then it fulfilled exactly the purpose for which it was sent. It touched you with the wings of the Logos. It offered you a moment of communion with the intelligence that governs all things. It gave you a direct experience that you are loved in ways that transcend your ability to fully understand. And perhaps, Zeno concluded, that is the only proof that really matters, not the one that convinces the mind, but the one that transforms the heart. The butterfly that landed on you during your pain did not come to explain suffering to you. It came to accompany you through it. And in that delicate, silent, almost invisible accompaniment, you experienced something that can forever change your way of being in the world, the certainty that you are never as alone as you believe. That even in your darkest moments, there is a beauty that seeks you. There is a delicacy that finds you. There are wings that land exactly where your soul most needs to be touched. The Logos spoke to you through wings, and in that light touch, it said everything it needed to say. You matter, you are seen, you are loved. And perhaps that is the only message you really needed to receive. Like, if you have ever experienced moments in which nature seemed to respond to your pain in inexplicable ways, comment if you believe that there are signs being sent constantly to those who are willing to perceive, and share with those who still need to discover that there are wings waiting to land in the moments when we most need to be touched by the sacred.